Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. You have found the Gamer Social Club weekly news podcast. I am your host, Nathan Lockhart, aka One Hot Dragon, and I am joined by none other than the novice of crayfishes, Harry. Harry, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, buddy. How are you?
I am fantastic. I am fantastic. And I am also joined by, oh no, oh shit, it's Addy. Addy, Adam, you get us kicked off. I know you've been playing the shit out of Sniper Elite. And I want to hear all about your experience with it. You're our lead reviewer, so you just take it away, homie.
Yes, well, no, I'm obviously I haven't got any Sniper Elite merch, unfortunately, so I have to wear my Wolfenstein one because it's about
It's
murdering Nazis, which is what we
Very appropriate. Yeah,
yeah. I love stuff on the sleeve as well. I love that.
it's a great hoodie. It's a
Yeah.
great hoodie.
So yeah, no, Sniper Elite Resistance is it's kind of like it's not a numbered sequel to the series. It's kind of, I wonder if it, and I've no idea, I wonder if it started as DLC because Harry Hawker, who's the lead protagonist in Sniper Elite Resistance, he appeared as your court partner in Sniper Elite 3, and then you've not heard from him since. So this was an opportunity to bring him back, and the story of Sniper Elite Resistance takes place at the same time as Sniper Elite 5, but you're kind of away from the front line where Carl Fairburn is kind of in the midst of it all, and he's doing his thing, and he's like the lead protagonist of the series. But in this episode of Sniper Elite, we're going to go and see what Harry Hawker is up to, and he's a British, he's a Cockney member of the SOE, which is the Special Operations Executive, I think is what it's called. I may have got that wrong. And he's been tasked with going into deep France and supporting the resistance in trying to uncover a new Wunderwaffe, which is like a wonder weapon in like epic proportions. And it starts off with it's really cool. Actually, it starts off with the prologue mission is the bouncing bomb. Where they try to blow down the hydrogen bombs that they used in World War II to like bounce on the lakes and stuff, and you get to see that, and then they blow up
Dam
the dam.
Busters. Yeah.
Exactly, which is really cool. So you start in that episode, and you're kind of finding out, and you discover that Fritz is up to something, as it were. And then over the course of the 9 missions, you discover that they're actually working on something much more sinister. The plot it evolves quite organically, quite nicely. You find intel in different levels and stuff like that that kind of uncovers more about. Oh, actually, this is more serious. Oh God, it's on the back of a train. How are we like it's sort of thing? It's really cool. It builds up to there's this kind of like, I think it's like a bio weapon called Kleinerblume, which they're trying to stop and destroy, but actually then it turns out they weaponize it on the back of rocket firing trains, and so you've got to try and take them down basically. And it's just very cool. And there's a moment, and I won't spoil it, but in Mission 8, it's quite. I wrote it in review. It was quite often these things. It's like, he's a merc and he goes and murders people, and you don't really learn much about the characters. Like, yeah, I'm going to do this and all that sort of stuff. And there's just a couple of moments where there's a bit more humanity and character brought to your protagonist, which I always like to see. And there's just a bit in Mission 8 where you're like, it's got a real, the way it sets up at the end of the cutscene at the end of Mission 7, sets up the tone for what's about to happen in Mission 8, and you're like, oh God, okay. And it's done very nicely. Yeah, the way it goes is just very cool. But the whole game is just, I called it the definitive Sniper Elite experience because me and my friends who played these games, we always love a sneaky, stealthy, shooty, sort of thing, like popping a Nazi from 400 meters away without being
Absolutely.
stuff like that is just, especially when you get like a headshot or a groin shot or something. It's just like, oh, beautiful. So like the evolution of the series, where they've added in like quality of life stuff, and it's got better over the course of the iterations of the games and stuff. This has got like everything that it's learned, that the Rebellion, the developers kind of iterated on and made better. So it's really kind of like everything's there. You've got your toolbox of weapons, as well as your kind of booby traps and the different elements in the environment. You can use sound masking. You sabotage a truck and it starts to make noises and all that sort of stuff, and then putting enemies in crates and stuff, like keeping them out of the way. And you can just do a whole level without ever being spotted. And it's just that is like when you do that in Dishonored and you get the ghost rank, it's stuff like that. It's just, well, yes, I've done it. I'm a stealthy guy. So all of that is just really cool. It's super satisfying. It's not different from 5. Like if you've played 5, it's essentially the same. The music's the same. The graphics are the same. Obviously, the levels are different, and the story's different, and the character's different. But you're not gonna. It's not like, what have they brought to the using a new engine or something like that. It's not that. So I feel like it's like a sidestep to do a full game, but it is a full game. I spent about 30 hours playing it. Like trying to get all the collectibles and stuff like that. And it's got like all of the modes. So like you've got the single player campaign, but you can play that fully in co-op. You've got like the invasion mode comes back from Sniper Elite 5 where you could play as an enemy sniper and you invade somebody's game, like in Deathloop where you had like so then you're playing like behind enemy lines. Oh, is it enemy at the gate? Sorry,
That's right. Yeah,
off the map sort of thing. Try to pick each other up and stuff like that. That is super tense and it's really fun. But like you can call this phone box for intel and it reveals both your locations. You're like, oh god, that's where he is, and then you go kind of scrabbling and stuff like that. But if you're the sniper if you're the enemy guy, you're invading, you can use any existing enemies to like be hyper vigilant and look out for you. So like you've got them working against you as well, so it becomes a bit more tenser. I mean, a guy invaded my game and I'd killed everybody. So like apart from like 4 enemies who were right away from where we were, so I was like, I don't have to worry about this. But like when I invaded another guy, I was like, I hit all the enemies there. Like, yeah, excellent. I've got my foot soldiers. So they've got all of that, and then you've got the multiplayer, and then you've got like a survival mode, which is kind of like Horde. So like waves of enemies coming, you've got to capture 4 kind of bases and stuff like that. So there's lots to do. And then the newest thing, the new thing they've added to this is a thing called propaganda missions. So in the maps, you'll find posters of propaganda, and you collect them, and it unlocks a mission from the main menu. And these are different challenges that are timed, and they've got like combat, stealth, or sniping challenges. So you've got to like kill 20 enemies in 2 minutes, but if your stealthy kills get you more time, and you've got to try and do it without being spotted, and because you couldn't just go in all guns blazing in the stealth challenge, you would get destroyed. But you're playing as a member of the resistance, so you're just doing different stuff, and it adds it's a nice addition, considering they could have just done everything else and not bothered with a new mode. They kind of like that little way of creating something new to try it out is really cool, and I really like the idea of finding the poster and taking on the story of somebody else, what they're up to and stuff like that, even if it's just minor stuff. But yeah, super good, and you'll keep busy looking for collectibles. I certainly was. Go to Game Social Club, and you'll find a whole lot of guides.
you certainly will.
I think it's 14 guides
in
total. There's one for every mission for all the collectibles, and then there's like certain achievements for doing certain stuff, which is really fun. Obviously, the achievements encourage you to do things in certain ways and get stuff, and so like just some guides around how to do them as well. Like getting a testicle shot from over 100 meters should be super easy, but it's just quite satisfying to do. On it as well, you're like, oh, that hurts, but it was a Nazi, so it's fine.
Exactly.
So yeah, had an amazing time with it. It's just super fun, and I always really like going back into those games and just it's a sandbox. Every mission is just a sandbox, and you can pick how you want to do. If you want to go in all guns blazing, you might have a tougher time because they'll just keep coming. But it's really cool. But also, it's super satisfying to take out the entire map without being spotted. But you start and you just look over wherever you are. It's like, wow, it's quite grand actually. The maps don't feel ridiculous, but they're quite detailed. There's some of the levels have got underground bits and lots of buildings you can go in, stuff like that. So you can be really kind of like crawling around and just being everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It's very cool.
So how would you describe this in comparison to, like, say, taking out an outpost in Far Cry? Is it kind of similar in that sense? Is it linear? You said something about a sandbox.
Yeah, no, you can do how you want. You basically you open the map and you go, here are your objectives. In what order? You never finish a mission by accident. In some levels you might do the main objective and then you don't know if there's going to be a cutscene, and then it cutscenes and you're like, I didn't do the side mission sort of thing. It's not like that, because every mission you have to exfiltrate. So one of your last objective is get out. So if you wanted to finish exploring the map or whatever else, or mopping up, you can do that. So you could do the main objective first. You could take that there's multiple routes into buildings or to different objectives, how you want to take it on. And then there are, every level's got a kill list target, and they are like a high ranking Nazi you want to take out. And every level, if you kill them in a certain way, you get an extra unlock bonus weapon. That they're like, so because you get more tools to play with them, which is really cool. So like some of it's like poisoning a guy's drink or using a rat bomb. Stuff like that. So you find different stuff in the level to kind of take him out, sort of thing. And he's just like he's patrolling or whatever else. And stuff. There's one guy, I think it's mission 6, and he likes to have a drink. So that's when you put the poison in his wine, and then you sneak off and wait for him to off he goes, sort of thing. So you were never there, sort of thing. It's very cool. And then the side missions and stuff, the same thing. You can choose how you want to do it. There was one where they were all surrounding like this bomb I had to destroy or like defuse. It's like, well, there's like 3 guys stood around this. I know what I'm doing. It's aim for them, but off they went. And I love it when the game, because the game does like these X-ray slow-mo kill things.
Yes, yeah.
And it's satisfying when it gets it bang on and you get a grenade or something like that, and they blows them up and they just kind of like go away from the thing in like super slow motion and they're off they go. So yeah, it's kind of like it's like Far Cry where you can choose how you want to take them out, and you wait till they're in a position where they can't be seen and then you take them out, sort of thing. Because if you drop them and somebody else can see them, or the patrol around, and that puts them on alert, and then that makes it harder to do because the AI is a bit sometimes, and it can be like, oh, I'm alert now, I'm just going to run around all the time. Like, well, you're not that alert because you heard the noise. There's no reason for you to be running around like that. I think I said to Maria, I'd like a bit of nuance in the future. It's like, something's not right, versus, I've seen a dead body. It is the same reaction to, a window broke. Like, running around hiding behind stuff. Like, there's nothing to say that you've seen me, so why are you like acting like that? But yeah, no, it's super fun, and like I would really encourage everyone to do everything, because like when some of the missions like collecting documents, and some of these are the collectibles, but the lore, the kind of like the personal letters they've written, it's really cool to kind of like in one of the missions, like, the Nazis think they've won and all this sort of stuff, like, but I'm gonna undo that, and like it's really cool, like stuff that they had in, and that's great.
So did you ever play Battlefield 1?
Oh god, yeah, that's my favorite Battlefield.
Okay, so I really loved the story in that game. I loved its narrative for how it really made you appreciate the history. So how would you compare the two, as far as like how it tells a story narratively?
Well, and obviously there's some creative license with the Sniper Elite games, because obviously we knew there was a lot of research programs with the kind of the Nazis and stuff like that. We were looking into all sorts of, including things like the occult. But we, obviously not like in Wolfenstein where they actually go ahead and find them. But you don't know how like legitimate it is that they had this Kleine Blume Wunderwaffe, but it's all within the realms of possibility for sure. So it kind of lines up with that sort of stuff, but it takes basically the idea is you're trying to stop them doing this because they're creating this weapon to stop the D-Day landings. So kind of like Assassin's Creed, where they've got some kind of license with the extra bits, but it's still within line of the timelines and the reality of stuff like that. And like the detail on the Nazis and stuff like that, in terms of like their armor and what they're wearing and all that kind of stuff, it all feels very cool, like accurate and stuff like that. But it is very much in the realm of we've created a narrative to tell a story, sort of thing as well. But that there were like kind of these sorts of operatives that existed to make a difference and make things happen. And I'm sure this we don't know. There's probably classified and redacted and all sorts of stuff that helped win the war and stuff. So yeah.
I think I only played maybe 2 or 3 and just like a tiny portion of it. And upon going into it, I realized, okay, this is a story mode. And I don't even remember if it had any other modes, but it just kind of didn't grasp me. Everything you're describing is, like you said, it's this full-fledged game. It's, got the horde mode. It's got the multiplayer. How deep did you go down the rabbit hole of exploring these different modes, and did it deliver on providing a AAA game? Like, I would drop $70 on this on release because every mode in this game feels good and polished.
So, well, I didn't get to play the deathmatch stuff because we just couldn't find a match. I guess in review period, there's not as many people playing and stuff. But I managed to jump into people's games, or some people jumped into mine in terms of like invasions, and the being the invading sniper and stuff is super tense. And like I could like with the death loop thing, I loved that as well. Just like creeping around and setting traps and kind of keeping an eye. Oh, was I? Oh no, I don't know. And then like you see like a lens flare off in the distance, like spot you run like you just smoke and mirrors, smoke bomb, and like that sort of thing. And it's just super tense. Like when you haven't been spotted, you know they're about. There was one level where a guy invaded me, and you got like a sonar on your mini map. So when you press the right stick on the controller, you it kind of gives you a location ish in terms of like they're on this direction. But when they're above or below you, it just gives you the whole circle thing. Like, oh my god, you're in the wall, where are they? Sort of thing. And it's super tense. Like you can't see where they are. They're clearly not in the room with you. So I'm gonna make that happen. And the survival mode is super fun as well, because again, it's just like mindless, let's murder, let's like hard mode type thing. Let's have a challenge for that. But yeah, and the propaganda missions are pretty challenging, and with the campaign as well. There's like achievements for doing it on authentic difficulty. So authentic is basically like wind resistance is super high, bullet drop is accurate. You don't have a hood. You can't tag enemies that you can see them and stuff like that. So it's really kind of intense. But that is like again, if you're like on it and you get through it all, it's like that was satisfying. That was really cool. So yeah, there's lots to do with it for sure. I would certainly recommend it. But I had a really good time, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Clear.
listening. I read your review obviously when you put it out, and listening to you now again, like along with all the immersive sim elements that are in the game and things like that. From you mentioned Deathloop, it sounds like games like Dishonored as well. Playing Indiana Jones right now, a lot of those sort of elements are in that game, which people were surprised to see at first, and now it kind of makes sense that they're there, having played some of it.
Yeah.
And I think more people are kind of waking up to realizing that actually what a lot of these sort of games have needed, in particular, sort of like your first-person RPGs and stuff like that, is immersive sim elements.
Yeah.
Where you are given that choice, and they've been there, but they've never. They rarely get that same level of like, oh, this is the gameplay. This is how we design the game, like a Dishonored or something like Sniper Elite. It sounds like, at least with Resistance, because I'm trying to think. Like even when I remember playing, I think it was in Elder Scrolls Oblivion, I think it was. Maybe it was when doing stuff for the Dark Brotherhood, and so you're the assassins and stuff like that, and you're, going to a guy's house to then like loosen the nails on the back of a stag's head or something like that. That's then going to fall and hit him, kill him when he sits in his chair, which he always sits in at midnight every night. And you're doing all this stuff, and then you walk away from the house and you hear and then it's just that you've done it. Well done. You're like, yeah. I do it the way the game said, like, hey, if you do it this way, you're really good, sort of thing. And I like that kind of. You can just kill them. That's your job. That's the thing. That's it. Or try and do it this way, not getting seen. Trying to poison someone, as you said, or whatever it might be. I really like that sort of level of depth, and thus also freedom to play the game your way and like that. And I haven't played any Sniper Elite games. They've never, from the box to just seeing trailers and stuff like that, never been something that appealed to me. Generally, military stuff doesn't tend to kind of grab my attention. But listening to you, reading your review, like I'm absolutely going to try this out. This sounds like so much fun. It sounds like such a game that I will get. Like I will spend 30 hours and more happily, looking for everything.
One of my favorite. I really like games that. Like, because with the games like this, you tend to have, I like this sniper, I like this. I mean, lots of games, I suppose. Like, I have this setup, I'm comfortable with this. And it looks like, I don't know how it'll feel, and I'm not going to use it, or that sort of thing. And I really like that any game that would encourage you to try different stuff, because like we've put it all there, give it a go. Like it might work and stuff like that, but have you tried putting a mine on a body and leaving it out for somebody to come find and then blow them up? No, well, I'll give that a go. That's super fun. And that's where like, the argument for achievements and stuff like that is like, actually, I will get achievements for trying different stuff, and like the best achievements encourage you to try different stuff. So like with the kill lists in Sniper Elite, killing enemies in different ways gets you to think about, actually I can use the environment, I could drop something on somebody, or there was one, the dam that gets blown up in the first mission, you go back to in the fourth mission, and they're trying to rebuild the dam. And there's one of the kill list targets. He's like walking around, and he stands on this outcrop ledge of this metalwork, and if you pop off one of the struts that are holding it up, he just falls off the dam. So like it's like and you're from all the way over there, sort of thing. And it's like that's super satisfying. That's fun. You watch him go.
That's amazing. I love that. That tickles me. That sounds like such a good time. And like, yeah, just the idea of revisiting area sounds really cool. And you mentioned something that I definitely want to do is like a topic maybe on like one of these shows at one point, not the news one, but maybe on the weekend. Yeah. We've got to talk achievements and trophies. Yeah. It's such an interesting conversation to be had, and I definitely think that both sides, as it were, like people look at it from different sides and have valid arguments. And I think it all just comes down to how achievements and trophies need to be done. And Sniper Elite Resistance sounds like one of those examples I'd hold up and go like, this is how you do it. Like you make a nice spread. A lot of them are just like fun things that you don't have to do in the game, but ultimately offer you the variety and get you trying things. And then like collectible stuff, story stuff, all that, we can get into it another time. But yeah, definitely sounds like a game I'm going to try this year.
It's what Russell asks all the time. Like, I don't understand why you all love achievements so much. And I'll say the same thing I always say to him in response is that if you go most games, so well, maybe not even most games, but there's a lot of games, like Harry's saying, where it does challenge you to explore further, to try out new things, to do these new kills. Look at Hitman. Hitman is another amazing example of how you do it and all the crazy ways you kill somebody or assassinate or whatever. And if you weren't going after the achievements, then you would have never experienced some of those things. Or even like Adam said, like you wouldn't have even realized, oh, I can do that in this game. So it's absolutely, because one of my friends, was like, yeah, you just play games to get the achievements and move on. And my other friend defended me because he was like, yeah, but if you get all the achievements, 9 times out of 10, you've pretty much done everything the game has to offer. And that's how I ended up becoming achievement hunter, because playing games like Ninja Gaiden 2, it reminds me of that era when I started being an achievement hunter and being like, okay, yeah, all these games are 6 hours, 8 hours long. I'm broke as hell and it took me forever to save up this $60 to buy this game. I am going to get every ounce that this game is worth. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's exactly how I ended up becoming an achievement hunter. And nowadays I find myself like falling off of that because there's too many games to play. My time's too divvied up. So
that's exactly it with Sniper Elite. I was saying, is it worth spending the money or like that sort of thing? Like if you could only buy one game and you choose Sniper Elite, you'll get your money's worth if you invest in it and do everything. If you just power the main campaign, you're like, oh, okay. Maybe I didn't get everything out of there, but like there's so much to do in each stuff, and then all of the other modes, like you're saying, if you want to get all the collectibles or run it on authentic and that sort of stuff. When a game is more like you could do more, but like your achievements are, and it's not just achievement related, but like if you were basing it on that, like following that conversation, like, oh, I've done the campaign and I'm done. Like, would you try out the multiplayer mode? You might do, but actually, like, oh well. So there's that. That's part of the argument, I suppose, around achievements. But yeah, there's certainly a lot to do because it encourages you to kind of explore those things, and you're rewarded for that little dopamine hit with the ping comes up and all that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Let's go ahead. We're about 30 minutes in. Let's go ahead and jump into. Oh, Harry, do you have any more questions for Adam as far as Sniper Elite goes?
No, not at all. No. As I said, like I very much want to pick this up and give it a bash at some point. And yeah, I will be using all of your guides for everything.
If anyone here or listening uses any of the guides, any constructive feedback will be greatly received, because that's like the first most extensive guides I've done. So yeah, I hope they're useful.
Yeah, I'll definitely use them. I'm now you got me at a crossroads of what I tackle next. I was gonna go play Indiana Jones now that I'd finished Ninja Gaiden 2. Once again, I'm like, sorry, Indiana Jones. I might have to play Sniper Elite.
They're both on Game Pass, so yeah, if you're on Xbox or PC, you've got them on Game Pass. If you subscribe to that, I mean, it's obviously on PlayStation and stuff as well, but. That's another pull, isn't it? That they've managed to get such a cool new title.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. and now we're getting Avowed soon, so get ready for that.
Hmm.
So on to the next news story. I played and finished Ninja Gaiden 2. It was exactly a week ago that it shadow dropped, and me and Harry talked about how once again I dropped Indiana Jones, starting doing that to play Ninja Gaiden 2. So this was my first experience with the Ninja Gaiden game, and I think I played either one or two briefly. Like I probably rented it back in the day, and then I was like, it seems a little difficult. I'm just gonna move on. It's not for me. So this was the first time I gave it a real shot, and I played through it. And I gotta say, like, you get so many different weapons. They're all really cool. I think there's 9 weapons, 2 ranged weapons, and every one feels so unique and different, and goes to a different person's play style. You know what I mean? Like, I really enjoyed using the staff the most. I think it was easiest for me to go from Black Myth Wukong and straight into using a staff into Ninja Gaiden, because I was like, the styles are very similar to the two, so I already felt ready to
Have you
tackle all
played,
this.
have you played Black Myth Wukong?
I did. Shut your mouth. They call me the one hot Wukong, all right?
It's true. The word on the street.
That's the word on the street. But anyway, it was funny. I told Harry off stream, and like Dano like messaged me. He DM'd me. He's like, "Are you gonna write a guide for every single boss in this game?" And I was like, "Well, I was planning on it." But I'll stop if you tell me to stop, because there's a lot of bosses. And I stopped like
Yes.
maybe like
That boss rush game has a lot of bosses.
oh my gosh. Well, it's funny because it wasn't until after that that I Googled how many bosses are in Black Myth Wukong. It's over 100. So really glad I
Jesus
stopped. It would
Christ.
have taken me forever to actually get through that. But anyways, no.
Amazing.
The thing that I love about Ninja Gaiden is the fact that it does bring back to life a remaster. It brings back to life the 360 era games, and that's always going to hold a soft spot in my heart. You know, like any kind of game that's that style or reminiscent or a remaster, you've already got like +5 on the review scale for me just for that factor alone. And so I I was really struggling like the entire game as to how I was feeling about it. And I was kind of going back and forth on like, man, I really love this game. I really hate this game. I really love this game, back and forth. Now, here's my thing. And I go in depth on my written review, and both mine and Adam's reviews are going to be in the description below. I gave Ninja Gaiden 2 a 6 out of 10 because honestly, when I'm playing a Batman Arkham game, you can be at a good distance from somebody, and you know, you press the X button, you're already right there in that person's face, and bam, you're good. Like fluent combat. With Ninja Gaiden, it is not that way. If I am aiming at an enemy and I press the fucking X button, go in the direction of the fucking enemy that I am pointing my joystick towards. I'm telling you, I cannot tell you how many times I had to bite my lip and not rage quit, because I was like, I am simply asking the game to move forward, not wall run. I don't want you to swivel. I want you to move forward. And it just wouldn't. It was driving me nuts. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I haven't fully gotten acquainted with the controls of the game, but here we are 8 hours later, and I can't tell. I can't even fucking tell you how to play the damn game. I really can't, because it's like, it's kind of like that seafood thing. Like, it's really wonky controls, and you just try to make your way through the game. All right, you just try your best to figure it out. And there was like times where, you know, you'll dangle off poles, just like so many different games, or you'll be climbing a rope, and you're trying to go straight on this rope, but for some weird reason it's like janky as to like the camera angles when you got onto the rope, so then it thinks you're like going to the side. So I can't tell you how many times I'm like hanging from a rope and Ryu is like swinging back and forth when I'm telling him to just go straight. So then I'll rearrange the camera angle again, hoping to actually fix the problem. And then he starts walking backwards. And I'm like, why? When I'm pushing forwards. So like this stuff is happening in the traversal. It's also happening in the combat stuff too. And when I say in the combat stuff too, it's like you're fighting with the camera angles at all times. It's, you know, depending on where you're at on the page. The thing is, I know I'm all over the place, but like when you're in combat and you got all these projectiles coming at you, you got to be quick on your feet. You can't really block them. So you just kind of got to dodge all over the place and keep moving in order to not get hit. So while you're dodging all over the place, your camera's going all over the place and it's getting all wonky and out of shape. And since you can't lock onto your targets, you're constantly trying to fight with that, right? So then you go to aim at the person you want to strike at. And again, like I just told you how difficult it is to simply walk straight on a rope, you're dealing with that same problem while trying to rearrange your camera while fighting. And there was like a boss I was fighting, and she simply moved a little bit to the left as I was coming down to strike. Now, this wasn't like she was dodging. This was just her simply moving. And the reason I bring up the Batman thing is I'm like, if this was a Batman game or, don't hate me, a Black Myth Wukong game, your character's automatically going to somewhat auto-adjust to actually hit that enemy because you were aiming at them, right? Like, there's absolutely no lock-on service at all for this game. And that's where I found the difficulty to be at. The actual fighting the enemies and their actual health, it wasn't... I played it on the normal difficulty just because I had heard people say, hey, this is a difficult game, like, brace yourself, you're in for a rough time. And I didn't really have a rough time as far as the actual difficulty goes. I think I'd spend about 5 minutes, 6 minutes on each boss. Maybe die. There was like one boss where I died like 2 or 3 times, and then I was able to move on past it. But yeah, no, I would simply chalk it up to it's the 360 era jank, and I say it like 3 times in my review that this is a remaster, not a remake. If they built it from the ground up, I would be more likely to be like, oh yeah, this is. If they built it from the ground up, I would be like, oh no, this game is a disaster. It should not be handling like this. I would have gave it a 3 if it was a remake. But since it was a remaster, I was like, okay, well, that, you know, I understand. The reason I still insisted on giving it a 6 is because at the end of the day, it is 2025 and I'm playing a game that has this much jank, and I still just don't feel like that's acceptable to put a $50 price tag on something that plays exactly like a 17-year-old game. Like, yeah, cool, graphics, all right. But that's what I put in my summary. I'm like, understand when you pay $50 for this game, you are paying for the graphics and the graphics alone. Like, you might as well go pick up the original copy if you're interested in jumping into this for the first time. And then the only other thing I have to say... Well, actually, I'll say 2 more things. Another negative thing and then a plus thing. I'll try to end on a high note. But, my gosh, the worst boss battle of all time. Like, at the end of the game, it was literally the worst boss battle I have ever played in a video game, ever. I'm telling you. Like... I even thought to myself as I was playing, I'm like, I could just put a blindfold on and go through this, because basically you just take your gun out, you shoot him, and then he goes, and then he vomits back onto you, and you simply walk to the left. You don't have to dodge, just simply move a little to the left, and then shoot, move a little to the right, shoot, move a little to the left. For 15 to 20 minutes, you must endure this. And then after you're done, he'll have a new phase, and that phase was actually kind of cool. It felt like a normal 360 era boss battle, and that part was fine. But yeah, leading up to it was such a slog, and I was just like, by the time I was done, I was like, thank God it's over. And I hated feeling that way because it really was like the actual combat of the game was a joy to play. Despite all the jank, it was a joy. You get so much satisfaction out of dismembering people, like watching the blood go all over the place. Also, side note, let's normalize turning off the blood. You know, some of us have kids.
Yeah.
Like, let me turn off the
Yeah.
blood so that way I can play it around my kids.
Mm.
So, you know, that was cool. And then the last thing I'll say is they also have other characters you can play as. I'm sure other people already knew that, but they have like I want to say three different characters you can play as. They have character story specific missions throughout the campaign, and then there's also another game mode outside of it where you can basically just rack up the points, and you'll have like an AI teammate and see how much points you can rack up in the most fun ways possible, aka the most gruesome ways possible. And that part was that part was really fun. But no, like there's one lady with a gun and a giant axe. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun to play as. So yeah, I think that about sums up my. Okay. I'm sorry. One more thing, and I'll shut the fuck up. Uh, I will say, despite all my negativity surrounding this, I am beyond really, really, really excited for Ninja Gaiden 4. Because, like I said, my problem with this was the 2008 jank. That's my problem. With Ninja Gaiden 4, you know, I expect that it's going to be in a different place. I expect, like, the controls are going to be a little more fluent and it's going to feel a little more natural. Even if they don't add a lock-on button, that's okay, because I would assume that they would have a better camera system to where, like, even when we watched the trailer or whatever, it kind of looked a little more above head rather than like kind of trying to be back or in the corner of a room. So I will say I am still really excited for Ninja Gaiden 4. My negativity doesn't negate that. So do you guys have any questions for me?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly do. Because again, I remember playing a bit of Ninja Gaiden. I think it was Ninja Gaiden Sigma. I think was the one actually I played, and I think that was the first one, but it was renamed when it got brought to PlayStation 3 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And yeah, they that series is hard, and it's a well-known fact that they are difficult. And in the same way that, like, From Software, the Souls games became known as difficult games, and thus, you know, the language and the kind of the rhetoric around those sort of games always became like, get good, you know, just keep going and all the rest of it. And like, I think with certain games that's certainly true, and like games like Dark Souls actually lend you quite a few tools to help you in your journey if you're willing to use them. Whilst I think a series like Ninja Gaiden is a little bit less kind of like forgiving in that respect, where it's kind of like you have everything you should need, so go and do it, you know, to the best of your ability. But I agree that from what I remember, Ninja Gaiden's always had the sort of fixed tracking camera and stuff like that, hasn't it, in certain environments and things, so that you don't get to control the camera and positioning. And as soon as you introduce elements like that, you are immediately dealing with the problems that people are facing since PS1 and stuff with Resident Evil, where it's you're walking down a corridor, camera changes, I'm walking backwards now suddenly because my button was facing the wrong way. Why do that unless you're playing a game like Resident Evil, where it's a horror game and you're trying to create an atmosphere of tension by making the player uncomfortable when things suddenly change on a dime like that and they're being chased and suddenly, oh crap, I'm running back towards the zombie instead of running away from it like I wanted to be. It's all getting too much. Ninja Gaiden, the combat's already like fast paced and difficult and things like that. The last thing you then need is a camera which is then giving you kind of mixed signals as to what your input should be. Like, are you facing the right direction? If you are holding your stick in that way, will they move in the direction of the stick, or are they going to move that way instead? Because the camera's decided, like, oh, we're looking at it from this angle, and thus actually everything's shifted by 90 degrees or whatever it might be. It only furthers to exacerbate situations which already would be a challenge regardless, because that's how the gameplay is designed. Even with things like the lack of a lock-on and the fact that if there's no tracking of any sort really whatsoever, I think, yeah, when you throw in, as you say, the sort of more antiquated elements of game design, people are likely to find this to be a challenge, yes, but not because the game is actually designed with the intent of the combat itself being the source of the challenge. It's things like the camera,
Yeah.
it's things like the environment and things, and, it's that. And again, it goes, platformers and stuff like that. I've always had those issues where you're trying to, navigate an environment and the camera's like, oh, sorry, we're up against the wall, so we're going to do this now. It's like, what the hell? Like, who does this help? Like, I'll look at myself and like something's coming up and punching me in the corner of the room. Thanks. Like, what?
This happened multiple times. Yes.
What the hell? Yeah, like I saw one of the screenshots in your article, and again, it sums it up. Where it's just a close-up shot of the bad guy who's pummeling you at that moment in time. You're like, great, cool.
I have no idea.
I deserve this. Apparently, like this is my own fault, I guess. Yeah, and that's the thing as hell. And you get that. Like, I remember playing Elden Ring when that sort of stuff happening. But again, like with Elden Ring, there is so many different tools at your disposal, whether it's summons, Ashes of War, going and getting new abilities and spells in a way that you can't in a game like Ninja Gaiden. Like there isn't that option just to go and buy a whole bunch of new gear and level yourself up and things like that. That you've got your limited resources. Do with what you have. But it's interesting to know that you're still excited for Ninja Gaiden 4 because, as you can clearly tell that there is fun in the combat and such like that. And so, do you feel then that literally it's just those are the only things that are really holding it back from being like an 8 or 9 out of 10 for you? Then really with the 2.
100%. If I had an easier time with the controls, I would have definitely made it like an 8 for sure. Because like I said, I was constantly struggling because there was these moments where I'm racking up these great combos. It feels great. Even though it's like I could sit here and feel like I could have the complaint of, oh, the enemies feel samey or they feel a little spongy. I didn't care because I was having so much fun with the combat. And like I said, it's just, if it felt a little less of a struggle to actually do those combats, then I would have been like, oh yeah. That's why I'm like, oh no, Ninja Gaiden 4 could be really, really, really good. 100%.
Cool. Very cool.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because like they did the Tomb Raider remasters. They're doing those out there. There's a new one coming out in February. They did 1 to 3, now doing like whatever 4 to 6 were like.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like, I hated the original Tomb Raiders because the controls were ridiculous. Like, I'm going to spend 3 minutes turning around to move forward that way, to turn to go that way again. And with the
time controls,
improved them, did they? They improved the controls from what I haven't played them yet, but like they had that mod, like like in Halo, the Legendary Edition, where you could switch between the graphics and stuff like that. At least you had the option to have.
Yeah, love that.
Like you say, it's really weird that we're going to remaster Ninja Gaiden 2 for 2025 and only upgrade the graphics, knowing full well, because all the reviews back then will have said the camera's not great. Even if the mechanics for like that auto targeting kind of thing, like with Batman, wasn't there in 2008 or whenever it was. It's like, well, surely we should put the effort in and just tweak those things. I'd have preferred worse graphics, better controls, and addressing the problems of a game than just making it shiny.
100%.
There's that meme that went around last year. Like, we shouldn't be remaking good films. We should be remaking bad films because let's see what went wrong and make them better. Focus on the things that aren't great and improve upon that. Because if gameplay is king, isn't it? It's got to work well, and if you get frustrated, you'll put it down. It's like, it's ridiculous. The camera's more of an enemy than the enemies are. Like, it's all that to see, and if you know that's an issue, address it.
Yeah.
Well, like, I don't know. I'm not a developer, so I don't know how easy that is to do, and time and budget and all that sort of stuff. But especially if you're wanting to lead into Ninja Gaiden 4, but actually, if people play 2 because it's available now and on Game Pass, so people give it a go for the first time, it doesn't dampen your spirits, Nathan. But other people are like, I'm not playing 4 then.
Yeah.
And then they won't bother. They had a really bad time with 2. So it actually could set you up to not sell that game.
Yeah.
Then it will expectations and the series collapses and the studio closes and all that sort of stuff.
That was my thought. And, that is my fear of somebody who's coming into this for the first time, or, a younger fella comes in and he's like, oh, this looks like a cool ninja game. And then that's their expectation, is like, 4 is going to play like this? Oh, hell no. Like, that's kind of my main concern from it, because it's definitely gotten a lot of eyes on it. I went into this not looking for other people's input. And even since I finished the review yesterday, I have yet to like actually go online and see what people are rating it, what people are saying about it. So I don't know. I might be on an island by myself here on this one.
I don't think I haven't done much sort of scouring either myself, but I don't think you'll find yourself on the line. You might find yourself on the end of like one end of the like a spectrum of review scores. I think where you're going to have people who maybe were really nostalgic for it, and not to say that they're biased because of it, but just they're used to it. They really enjoyed it. It then obviously comes back. It looks better when they're doing it. It's hard not to kind of go, this is still a 9 because it was a 9 back then. It's still a 9 now. But other people, again, because they've grown up with different, design, different, mechanics. We're all used to, as you said, like a Batman Arkham combat system and stuff like that. There'll be people out there who maybe then go like, actually, you know what? This hasn't aged well. I love it still. Like, it's still a great game to me. I can still score it a 7, but I still have to point out, you know what? This doesn't hold up. I hope they don't do this in Ninja Gaiden 4. Yeah. As we said, like it can kind of go either way. And I guess my attitude towards it is always, and there'll be people who disagree vehemently about this, and that's fine. But I think giving player choice is always the biggest thing. And hey, have a toggle so that you can go into the menu in Ninja Gaiden 4. If you could do it in 2, black, great. But for 4, at least be like, you play classic mode, no auto tracking, no tracking whatsoever. It's all on you. Switch on to new mode, current mode, whatever you want to call it, 21st century mode.
Yeah.
And you get a little bit of tracking, and maybe even a slider that lets you, change the strength of it, so it only helps a little bit, or it actually helps me a lot because I struggle to keep up with the combat.
Absolutely.
That's something that I would appreciate. Definitely. And seeing things like Doom the Dark Ages do it with their combat, that you can slow down everything, even make it quicker.
Yeah.
Like, who doesn't want that? Like, and for people who then get upset at the idea that somebody might make their game easier because they've done that, why do you care? You're not the one experiencing it that way. You don't have to do that. Let people experience games the way they want to in that respect.
So the thing on the reviews thing as well, I'd be super skeptical of somebody who's, I gave it a 9 in 2008 and I'll give it a 9 now. It's like, really? Because all they've done is the graphics and it's the same thing. And like Nathan seems like a really, some people might not agree with the score, but it seems like the critiques he has of it seem absolutely genuine. Like if you're still implementing the same camera, remaster means like we're retweaking it and making it better. So like, it's the same. Why would you still give it the same score because of prettier things?
Right. Yeah. And that was my thing is I'm not reviewing this as Ninja Gaiden 2. I'm reviewing this as a remaster because people already know what they think of Ninja Gaiden 2. But like, what do they think of this version of it, And I even ended my article with saying exactly what Harry just said. I'm glad that to hear it come out of your mouth too. It's if you're returning to this series and you want to experience it again and you already loved it for what it was, you're going to have a great time and I highly recommend it. But if you're brand new to the series, it's either or. Just know you're paying for graphics.